welcome to the Mindset Michele TV show. We're so super excited for you to be joining us yet again today for another fabulous show where we have another incredible guest, and I just feel so absolutely honoured today to have the lovely young man all the way from the UK. Hello, Jeevan.
Hi, Michele. Thank you very much for having me on.
It's so amazing having you come on the show, Jeevan. And for those, especially here in Australia, that may not have heard about this incredible young man, he's not only part of Mensa, which is that incredible organisation that people join that are in that very small percentage of intelligence around the world, but he's also a financial advisor and a transformational coach. And his work within the financial advisory work is with True Potential and with I'm just checking my notes here, the Vanquish Transformational Coaching is where he does the transformational coaching. But how does somebody that is, one of those few people and that's what Mensa means, you've been tested and that you're one of the most highly intelligent people on the planet, how does somebody with that kind of background decide to start a career in the financial advisory space and then kind of transition over into transformational coaching? I'm fascinated, and please explain to us a little bit more about that journey for you and how you came to be doing what you're doing.
Well, yeah, absolutely. So thanks for the introduction, Michele. Absolutely spot on. So yeah, there's always a story, isn't there? There's always a backdrop as to why someone ended up at a destination. So for me, it was a case of, being very clever at school, as you said, now part of Mensa, but obviously it's at school. I wasn't necessarily part of that of Mensa, but what I was top of the class in many subjects, including maths and English and stuff. So very naughty at school, one of the naughty kids, as it were, and that tends to sometimes come with being intelligent. So I was having some troubles with school, and my parents actually said to me, look, you're pretty smart, maybe try and sort yourself out and we'll put you into private school. So decided to agree to that decision, did the tests and actually made the move to private school. Needless to say, that didn't last very long. Was kicked out in 3 years and went back to a state or comprehensive school. Now, where this is leading is that actually having a high intelligence and being successful doesn't have a one-to-one correlation. If you look at any person throughout history, it's not just the highest intellect people that are successful, it's those that have the right mindset, that have the work ethic, that have the diligence, that have the intellect and the passion in a certain area to actually achieve success. So following school, I did okay. I went into an accounting-based role, realised that wasn't for me, and I needed to be more personable with people, which is where the financial advising came in, and then subsequently into the coaching. Now, the coaching for me is something that really helped me in my own life to fulfill my own potential. So I thought, well, actually, why not give this to other people as well who have maybe been through a similar situation to myself, where they're not fulfilling their own potential and achieve what they need to achieve. Much like a tree, if you plant a tree, it will grow to the best of its ability in the environment that it's planted. Whether it's the water, whether it's the sunlight, or whether it's the compost or the soil that it's planted in, it will grow as well as it can in that environment. Humans don't tend to do that, do we? And I was a prime example. Being planted in a private school, you would expect me to use the resources available in the best way possible, but I didn't. And I think for me, sometimes you have to go through bad situations, and we'll probably come on to talk about this, to come out stronger, because you've learned something from that. Yes, you can't change the past, but what you can do is change the trajectory moving forward based on your new viewpoint that you have because of what you've been through. Does that make sense?
It does, and thank you for so wonderfully, and I appreciate that it's not perhaps always the easiest to talk about, being so super intelligent and obviously then getting bored and playing up and the behavioural side of a youth where you perhaps have that issue of not being a tree, like that example that you used, not being a tree with the right soil and the right environments, where for you perhaps that meant that the behavioral issues and as you so wonderfully put it, the mindset issues became more of an issue. So even when put into an environment where in theory you would flourish more because you had more stimulation, more teachers, more this, more that, it actually still didn't quite work for you. And it is wonderful that at such a young age you were able to recognize this and transition not just from the finance but into the transformation space and begin that journey of working on yourself. I know that there's people that are quite a lot older that come to those realizations very later in life. So congratulations to you for reaching that stage much earlier. And it also means that in essence, with that ability to do anything and be anything and put your mind to whatever it is you want to do and then just go do it. What do you then think success is to you? What success mean to you now?
Well, I think the word success is such a fantastic word because it can mean a completely different thing to Mr. Smith as it can to Mrs. Jones. Earl Nightingale once put it as success is a worthy ideal that we are working towards. So if your worthy ideal is to become world boxing champion, or equally your goal or ambition is to become a teacher and have a lovely family of 4, working towards that is a success. What isn't a success is if you want to be a musician and you're working 9 to 5 in McDonald's, that is not a success. Okay, so the first thing that we need to establish is, what does success mean to us? Do we want
just sorry to interrupt, but one of the things that people watching are really interested in is what your response is. So what does success now mean to you? Is success what you're talking about, that working towards a goal is success to you now? What does it specifically mean to you?
Well, so this is obviously what I'm coming to, is that for everyone it's different. So for some people they want a Dan Bilzerian lifestyle, and for other people they want, as I said, a normal family. For me specifically, success for me would be to change as many lives as possible through obviously podcasts and my book, etc., to help people to achieve their best self. Because look, we're all here on a journey, and if we can give our best self to the world, then that's going to make the world a better place, isn't it? You know, if you were born to be world champion boxer, but you decided to go down the route of taking drugs and going out drinking, you're not putting your best self forward. So you, by default, are not a success. You know, if you look at yourself as a percentage bar, 100% is what you should have achieved in life, and you're only reaching 30% of that, you're not a success. I mean, I don't know how many exams people have taken who are listening, but 30% is not a good score. So for me, it's being my best self. So whether that's writing as many books as possible and getting that information out, whether it's, well, meant to thing, obviously for me that was an ambition to prove to myself that I'm in the top 2%, and I've generated that. I started judo a few years back. Well, I did do it for a few years as a child, but I started in 2020 and I'm now number 11 in the country. The coaching side, as I said, bringing on clients, so that's for me a success as well. So we need to have a number of areas in life that we are measuring success against. It's not just one area. So for me, I've got my own 4, 5, 6 areas that I'm measuring success against. It's the social side, it's the business side, it's time. You know, how much time do you have available? Because for some people, they say, look, I'm earning £100,000 a year, but I've got no time. So for me, that's not success, because you haven't ticked all of the boxes in terms of time, family, spirituality, etc. So success is very personable. In terms of my current goals and ambitions, as we said, working towards that, and as you've rightly said, coming out of school and changing my mentality, it probably wasn't until 25 where I really changed and developed. You know, men tend to mature later than women, generally anyway, and it took me a bit of time to actually develop and understand where I want to be. So as far as judo is concerned, I'd already written the book before I started judo, and actually I used those own things or own topics and rules on myself in judo. I actually started, as I said, in 2020, and I'm now number 11 in the country over a 2.5 year period. And yes, I did it for a year or two as a kid, but to come back at 30 and to increase that fast is down to the mindset and the goals and the routines that I'm instilling to ensure that I'm reaching my ambitions in judo. Does that make sense? I know it's a slightly long-winded answer, but it's not something that you can explain in a single sentence as far as what success is. It depends on each individual.
Yes, it does, and that's why it's always interesting to hear different people's response to the question, and why it's so exciting and interesting to hear different people at different stages of their life stage, their careers, have different insights. So I'm really hearing that it's more of that holistic approach to success for you, and you have some quite key specifics around money and social and time and judo and different things. As part of defining and determining, okay, I'm successful if I do this, I'm successful if I do that, what else do you think? What do you think is some of those mindset habits that you have implemented to effectively start to focus some of that extra intelligence that you have, so that you build those habits? Because as you said at the beginning, high intelligence didn't necessarily mean success. So you've obviously and so beautifully trained yourself, and whether it was through judo or other things, what sorts of things did you use to keep training that very high intellect, so that you were then following behavioral patterns or methodologies or tools to actually start building successful steps in different areas?
Yeah, so really great question. So I think for me, it's all about your self-image first. You know, what do you see yourself as? You know, if you see yourself as a world champion in something, what then happens is that you will follow a regiment and a process that will mean you will train harder, you will train longer, and you will have the discipline to achieve that ambition. If you see yourself as someone, we'll use judo as an example. You know, if I'd started in 2020 and said, all I want to do is train once a week, just to lose a bit of weight, you know, that was the goal. And that is the goal for some people. They will never achieve the highest level of the sport. Even if they had the ability, they have set their goals too low, if that makes sense. So for me, you know, I didn't necessarily have this ambition early on, but ambitions change and goals change over time. So I then said, well, I want to get to this level. And for someone who wants to get to that level, what do they need to do in terms of training and regime and regimen in order to do that? Once you've established what that looks like, what that pattern of success looks like, do you have the discipline, and how can you generate the discipline? Do you have a daily task to-do list that you follow? I know I do, which before I wouldn't do. I wouldn't have a structure to my day, and I wouldn't therefore achieve success. You know, you've got to break stuff down, and this is something that I think for me massively changed, was that breaking down sort of overwhelming goals into smaller goals. So writing a book, for example, instead of looking at writing a book, which seems like a very overwhelming task, I started to break it down into daily habits. So if I write 1 page a day for a year, we're pretty much there, aren't we? And writing a book isn't that difficult as far as, writing a page isn't that difficult as far as I'm concerned. Look how many emails you write at work every day. Yeah. So when you break stuff down, it makes things much easier to bring together, essentially.
So you kind of introduced two different concepts there that I'll just kind of reflect back, which are really good concepts again, around firstly the self-image. So when you're talking about whether you're doing something like the judo that you used as a fabulous example, whether you're doing it to just lose a bit of weight, so training once a week, or whether you're setting the goal or the vision of actually being a champion at it, and so that takes more training, more work, more discipline. And you use the training regime and regimen and things like that. So whatever the vision is, or whatever the self-image is that you have of whether it's losing weight or whether it's being a champion at it, you then have to follow that up with those tools to support that. And you then so lovely started to talk through how the way to do that is to break stuff down and to set those micro goals or those mini goals along that path to do that. I can see that sometimes it may be that your excitement and your brain or your intellect may be running at 100 miles an hour already down that pathway. So for people watching, and there will be people watching that can really relate to that, how do you then keep yourself so disciplined to keep to those steps when maybe your intellect and your self-image is already like, oh, I'm here, and you have to actually go through those daily processes, as you know, to do those micro steps and to keep on that path? What's the tricks for you or tools that you use to keep that discipline going?
Yeah, I think it comes down to how much you want something, and why you want it in the first place. So discipline for everyone is very different. There's those that need the carrot and those that need the stick. So much like you've had managers in the past who have been very harsh with you, and those that have been very nice and arm around the shoulder. So depending on what the task is, I would either be very disciplined and hard on myself, or I will do the arm around the shoulder. There's many ways to motivate yourself, and for everyone that's different. Whether it's affirmations, whether it's listening to motivational speeches, whether it's listening to upbeat music, whether it's writing stuff down. There's so many ways that you can motivate yourself. And just coming back to your earlier point with regards to, for everyone it's different on the judo side. Everything has to be created in the mind first. Even yourself, you have to create your ideal self. How disciplined are you going to be, and how are you going to get through your days? Do you want to be someone who just sits and watches Netflix, or do you actually want to be someone who gets things done? And I think that when you have that self-image, you will automatically become more disciplined. It's automatic. If you see yourself as a lazy person who procrastinates, you will naturally follow that path. You've just got to say, look, even if I don't feel like doing something, the end goal is what's important. You're not always going to feel like going to the gym. You're not always going to feel like writing that page. You're not always going to feel like going to that meeting, but you have to do it. You're in control of that mind. Your mind is negative naturally, isn't it? It will naturally tell you negative based stuff and say, oh, we'll do this tomorrow, or we'll go later. You have to tell your mind, no, I've said this is the instruction and we're doing it now. The mind actually can't comprehend the negative, and this is something that I've learned massively of late. If you tell your mind don't do something, it wants to do something. It wants to do it. If you say don't think of elephants, the mind wants to think of elephants. Instead of saying don't do something, let's talk about what we do want to do. So people say don't be lazy to themselves, and I do it all the time. Don't be lazy, don't be silly, don't do this, don't do that. Instead, I change my trajectory to say do this. We train today, we write the book, we go to meetings, we win medals, etc. And for me, that's been a massive shift in terms of, as you've said, how do you remain disciplined? Well, if you're telling yourself to do something, much like a manager says, oh, you need to send this email out. Yeah, roger that, and we'll do the email. When we manage ourselves, we tend to tell ourselves to not do stuff. And for me, that's been a massive shift.
I can really hear that, because those very human judgments and very human self-talk around, I'll do it tomorrow, I'll do it later, and those judgments that people have, they do take that discipline, and it does take that focus. And you have such a lovely way of putting how to reframe it and how to focus on what you want. So, not sitting there in front of TV with time and life kind of passing by, but seeing yourself as, oh, okay, I'm going to write another page in the book. I'm going to train for judo. I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to eat healthy food. It's a simple and you make it seem even simpler, but it is those choosing those thoughts and being aware of choosing those thoughts, so that when it comes up about, oh, I'm too tired, I'm too this, I'm too that, I'm too whatever, remembering that that vision, that self-image in the way that you were describing it, that self-image is the purpose part of why you want to be doing what you're doing, so that you can keep following along. What on those days where, and many people have them, what do you do on those days where you keep focusing on the positive, and I want to write this book, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to go to those meetings, but number of things happen, and might feel like it's wearing you down. What sorts of things do you do on those days to keep that positive focus and keep going with that discipline?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, you've basically touched on it already there. When you're going through something, so if I'm climbing a mountain, for example, you can think of the steps and think, oh, this step hurts my legs, this step hurts my legs, this step hurts my legs. That is not helping you in any way, shape, or form. Why don't we think of the summit view that you're going to get? So when I go to the gym, obviously, some days it's painful and some days I don't want to go. But I don't think of the reps on the bench press. I don't think of the bicep curls that are going to hurt my arms. I think of the body that going to the gym, this process is going to produce. Again, I don't think of I'm typing away, writing the book. I think of, well, when this book is completed, it's going to help change the lives of people. Again, when I'm training judo, it's, you're getting thrown on the floor and slammed around and choked and arm locks are on. Again, I'm not thinking of the pain at that point. I'm thinking of, well, now I've learned ways that maybe I'm not going to get caught by this again. And again, this is developing me into a champion maybe next year, the year after. The best boxers in the world have been punched more times in the face than I ever have, but they are better than me. So it's all about the questions for me that I'm asking myself at that point. Again, your mind will naturally think of and try and avert you away from things that are going to cause you discomfort or issues. So, when your legs are sore in the gym or your arms or whatever else, your mind's going to say, oh, this is not good. Let's try and divert your attention away. But I will set the sail on my mind in a different direction and say, yeah, but this is actually what's going to come from this that we're doing. I don't want you to focus on this, mind, please. I want you to focus on this longer term goal. And then it's, then we understand together that, yeah, this is part of the process. Because look, if you want to be a courageous person, you have to go through something fearful. You can't be courageous without going through that fear. Same thing with the gym. It's just an easy example. If you want that perfect body with the six pack and the ripped shredded physique, you have a process to follow. You have a process of going to the gym most days. You've got certain types of exercises that you need to incorporate, and then the results will follow. The results won't be there in day one, day two. And this is where people fall short as well. They want to see short-term results. Rome wasn't built in a day, I think the phrase is. And the same goes for your body. What will happen is that the first week you'll see nothing. Second week you'll see nothing. Third week you may see something slight. And then fourth week you'll be like, oh, look at the change. Look at the change since that first week. And it's just having the discipline. And for me, as I said, it's always about that end goal. This is what I want. I'm not bothered about this process. This process is a necessity. And as I said, if you're focused on those bad steps, oh, it's painful, it's painful. Don't think about that. You don't need to. Your mind wants to think about that. That's fine. That's natural. But we need to override that program. We need to override that program. It's like when, you might have someone around your house and they want to put on something on the TV and you don't agree with it. You get the remote and you change the channel. Same thing. The channel that's on in the background by default is a negative one. And we need to change that channel to something more optimistic. And, you program your mind, much like, as I said, a TV. You've got different programs. Which program do you want in? What CD do you want in the CD player? What record do you want in the record player? You're in control of that. And it might take time, the first month, if you're looking to change your mindset, might be tough. But this is where a pen and paper come in handy. I write down my goals every day. I write down what I'm grateful for, and I write down some affirmations that help me to build on my self-image. It can be difficult if you've had a bad past. Your self-image can be bad, and that's for everyone. But it's like what comes first, the chicken or the egg. If you tell yourself that you are something, you are more likely to be like that. I mean, you can try this right now. If you tell yourself, yeah, I'm weak, I'm not very confident, I'm not very good socially, you can tell by those words you start to feel depressed and down, not necessarily depressed, but down. If you say, I'm confident, I'm aggressive, you can already see that it makes you more like that. So that's another thing that you can use to sort of override using affirmations. And it's a massive thing. If you look at Muhammad Ali, for example, he said, I'm the greatest before he was the greatest, because he believed it so strongly that he then went out there and did his thing.
These are really, again, some fabulous insights into how your journey has unfolded. And so just firstly there, your example around asking your questions at that point in time when you're in the gym and it's hurting, or when you're writing and you'd rather be doing something else but writing the book, etc. Asking yourself those questions around, well, what do I need to do to keep focused on the vision of where I'm going, on the end goal. And I do like your example around the TV and like a remote control with your mind. The negative channel and the negative self-talk and the imagery and judgments is one of those channels that's going to be coming up. But how can you and what do you do to change that to a different channel? So in the different channel, you see yourself climbing Mount Everest. You see yourself finishing the book. You see yourself with a six-pack. So understanding that those daily habits and those daily routines of changing those channels are part of how it can help you to set up those patterns and those habits for creating that success. We could talk, and I know that you would have so many more pearls of wisdom. But if people wanted to connect with you and hear some more about your insights into all of this, what's the best way for them to connect with you, Jeevan?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the best way is probably through the Vanquish Transformational Coaching. So I'm sure there'll be links left. And it's a case of having a conversation and seeing how we can maybe change your mindset to fulfill something that you're after, a goal. Because look, sometimes it's the case of you don't know what you want until someone asks you. People say, I want a boyfriend and girlfriend, but what does that look like specifically? And it's the same. And this is where coaching comes in. Tiger Woods has a coach. Roger Federer has a coach. And you're probably thinking, well, why do they need coaches? They're the best. Because sometimes you need someone to look at you from an external position and maybe help you refocus. So that's probably the best place to catch me.
Fabulous. And if people were to think about you and ask themselves the question, if I asked Jeevan what advice he might give with your very interesting past of, lots of success, but also some obvious challenges with the tree and the right environment for the tree to grow, what sort of advice might you give to your younger self?
Oh, this is really only one key thing, and obviously there's a myriad of things that will come with that. But to be the best version of yourself, coming back to right at the start of the conversation with regards to the tree, I had the ability to be much better at a younger age than I was, and it's like having been given a royal flush in the hand of poker and not playing it, and letting someone who's got maybe a three of a kind of sevens beat your hand. So for me, it's a case of fulfilling my potential and being more focused to my own pathway than going out and drinking and messing around. Because look, at the end of the day, the only thing that really matters is leaving a legacy. of some sort, whether it's having kids and leaving a family, whether it's having an imprint on the world in terms of business or a message. And for me, yeah, that's the biggest thing, is to be more focused and disciplined to becoming my best self. That should be your primary focus, whether it's just for yourself so you can be proud of who you are, whether you believe in a God and it's to glorify God, whether it's for your parents to make them proud, whatever you want to use as motivation. And as we talked about earlier, you got to ask yourself questions. And for me, the question I should have asked when I was a child is, what is your potential? And I should have worked out what that was. And then the second question should have been, well, why are you wasting that potential? And I think if those two questions had been really asked in a deep way to me when I was a kid, I think there would have been a huge change. I just don't think that I was really asked those questions enough, and maybe asked by the right person. But yeah, they would probably be the two questions. What is my potential and why am I falling short? And I think once I've answered those, it would have been behaviour's poor, mentality's poor, mindset's poor. And then I would have had to address those things and reduce that discrepancy. So that's the answer.
Wonderful. And what a incredibly thoughtful, again, I hear it through all of the different conversations. So what an incredibly thoughtful and insightful young man you are, into your journey and into some of the challenges along that journey, and some of the, I hear you when you're saying, why didn't I ask these questions, or why didn't I understand the answers, more importantly, to these questions at a younger age? And as I said at the beginning, people can be much older than yourself and have these same sort of realizations and awarenesses. But I congratulate you for being at a younger age and discovering a pathway that supports you now, and for that tree to keep growing. So thank you so much for coming on the show today, Jeevan.
Thank you very much, Michelle. I really enjoyed the conversation. I think you've asked some really, really great questions, and hopefully the listeners have found some value.
Fabulous. Thank you. But for now, we've come to the end of the show, and thank you again for watching and for hearing some different, again, insights into how to create that successful mindset. And for now, from my heart to your heart, be great, be fabulous, and be you.